Yeah, I have a slide where I do that. What's in the send off? Just like go on to Discord. Hey, Welcome to my talk, No Code, No Problems. My name is Sanni, and today we'll be trying to make an app without a single line of code. We'll see how far we go. But before that, I'll introduce myself. If you don't know me, I'm Sanni. I'm a fourth year software engineering student at EQ. I work as a casual backend software engineer at Canva. I used to be a tutor at EQ, and I love prototyping and graphic design, which is why I'm doing this talk. So I am by no means an expert. I simply like doing this. And I thought that I might share some of my love with you guys, and hopefully everyone will get to learn something new, and hopefully you'll get to take away something from this talk. Yeah, let's go. All right, so what is this talk for? So I really like designing, and I think that everyone can find some joy in designing. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it, I think. It's so that maybe you'll learn something new. Maybe you'll take away some tools that you can use for hackathon, for example, which is coming up, by the way. Pretty much the idea is sort of the main thing is you design your app before you code it. A lot of times I see apps or websites that people make and they look really ugly. And I think part of it is probably because they didn't take the time to actually put some thought into the design. So yeah, hopefully you'll get to see how I design my things. What is this talk not? So I'll be using Figma throughout this talk, but it is by no means a complete tutorial on Figma. If you want that, I would highly recommend watching other YouTube videos. There's so many that go through like all the little nitty-gritty details. There's so many things on Figma. I could not teach you all of it in an hour, even if I wanted to. It's also not creating an app you can actually publish to an app store. If you read the Facebook description, it's about prototyping. And you can't really publish a prototype as an app that people can use, but it's a great way to start building an app. Good thing is you don't need to know a single line of code, so you could make prototypes without being a programmer, which is very cool. What this talk is also not is hopefully not boring and dull. It'll probably be a bit of a mess, you'll see why, but yeah, let's go. So what are we talking about today? So first I'll cover why we should prototype. This list that I made with the importance of prototyping, I kind of like, it's not, the source is me. I didn't like take it from a textbook or anything. This is just why I think people should prototype. So, you know, maybe take it with a grain of salt a little bit, maybe. We're going to learn some Figma basics. I'll just cover like maybe some keywords and like how things kind of work in Figma. And then we'll be pair designing. And this is the part that gets really messy because I've never done that before. And also I have limited time to design and I've never really designed something in like the space of like 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever. So yeah, I'm kind of nervous about that, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it all goes well. And lastly, profit. Yeah, all right. So the importance of prototyping. So this is why I think you should prototype so that you have something to create. And I think, for example, when I did my capstone project, I created a prototype of what we wanted our website to look like. And it was really useful when, you know, you're writing front-end code and you want to know what something looks like. You want a clean design throughout. So that's like number 3. You want everything to sort of match up. You don't want like the front page to be like purple and then the next page is like green and another page is like red or something. It's not very clean. It's not very nice. So we want consistency. And another reason is to get feedback early. So if you prototype, you can pretty much like get as detailed or as basic feedback as you want. So you could literally just send a link to your prototype to a friend and be like, hey, what do you think? Like, does this make sense? And that's like a pretty basic feedback you could get. Or you could go really in depth and be like, okay, like try to do this task. What do you think? Try to do this. And there are lots of HCI, human computer interaction tools that you can use that are taught in Deco 2500 if you are looking for a uni course that teaches this sort of stuff. But I'm not really going to go too much into that. But these are some of the reasons I think people should prototype because it just sort of makes things better. All right, so Before we get into some fun para-designing, we're going to run through some basics. So these are, I think, some of the basic things that you probably need to know. And I'm realizing now that I forgot about something else, but I'll just sort of cover it as we go along. But one of the first things is frames and groups. So to kind of explain this, I'll just jump into Figma. So this is what Figma looks like. It's the software. It's also available online. So if you go to figma.com, it's free, which is, I think, one of the most enticing things about it. And it's also collaborative, so you can like have multiple people working on the same thing. Also very cool. So what's a frame? So a frame is this little hash thing you see here. Is what a frame is. Usually a frame is whatever you want the kind of what you're building your prototype on. So usually when you have something inside of, say, a screen. So this is, for example, a screen for an iPhone 11 Pro. You don't usually want frames inside of it, in my opinion. I think frames are better kept as just like the background of what you're making, because you can like collapse frames and it's a lot nicer to see, I think. This is just how, and again, this is how I like doing it. You may have different preferences, but I think it works better like this. And then you have groups, which is what you use to actually kind of create different components and group them together. So this, for example, is a status bar for an iPhone. And when you're prototyping, you want to make it as realistic as possible to what a user is going to see. And if you have an iPhone, you probably know that there's like this notch on the newer models. So you kind of want to recreate that as you design. And then you have these like little groups that contain different things. You can hide things inside of groups, so these are hidden. And you can name them, you can rename them, and so on. So if you've done anything like Photoshop or Illustrator, this is probably somewhat familiar to you. So yeah, so that's frames and groups. It's probably just good to know as things to do. And then we have something called auto layout, and I think I made these slides in the wrong order because what I wanted to talk about first was components. So we'll talk about that first. So this is a component, and the cool thing about components is if you've done React, they kind of work in the same way as React components, in that you can literally just duplicate them and their properties are kind of propagated throughout all of them. So for example, if I copy this, so this is a child component, this is the parent, right? So you can kind of tell from these icons. So this is the child component, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change something in the parent and show you how you can sort of see that change in the children. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this notch. So something like red, I don't know, just wanted to do that. And then maybe I'll delete this Wi-Fi icon. And you'll notice that this change is reflected in both of them. What you can also do though is, for example, say you want some of the features or some of the properties from your parent to exist in only the parent and not the child, then you can still do that. You can still change parts of this. So for example, say I want this notch to be blue, and you can do that. And then obviously it's a downward tree graph thing. So parents' changes get reflected in the child, but not vice versa. So you can do that sort of stuff, which I think is really cool. And then if you, for example, change this color again, then you'll notice that it doesn't change here because you've already changed it there. And then there are ways that you can actually, which I believe is if you go to right click, reset all overrides. Yeah, that'll reset all the changes you made and it'll just propagate whatever's in the parent. So that's what's cool about components, and that's why I really like components. Very useful. And we'll just go back to what we had. Okay, let's go to that. Yeah, so it's really useful for when you're creating something that is meant to be linear throughout. And the thing that makes it really useful when you're prototyping is you can design what a button's meant to look like, for example, and you probably want most of your buttons, if they're like a primary button, for example, to look the same. Which also, if you're designing, say, a website in React, you'll notice that you have a component for a button and you keep reusing that. And the idea is so that you have something that looks the same. And that's kind of the same idea here. Then we'll go back to auto layout, I guess. So for that, what I'm just going to do is make some squares. So it's kind of what the name says it is. It's essentially being able to get a layout that's automatic. So suppose you have something like this, where you have 30 squares for something, and you want to kind of put them in a layout where it automatically rearranges itself. So you kind of select them, and then you can hit this auto layout thing. And then pretty much you can kind of say whether you want it to move downwards, or if you want it to move to the side, you can say what the distance is. For example, I want 30 pixels between all of that. And then if you delete, say, a middle thing, it collapses it. And I think that is like a really cool feature for it, because if you want to say now go back and add a little work, hold on, let me just, yeah. So now if you try to copy paste a thing, or you try to add multiple elements, they'll all get added in sort of the same distance, and they'll all be added after each other, or you can sort of add them beneath each other. So yeah, that's auto layout, and also really useful, especially if you're, again, like someone who's not very good at designing. In a good way to get a nice design is if you just have everything consistently apart, or consistently next to each other. And yeah, auto layout also means that you don't have to spend hours and hours creating a ruler, creating a grid, doing like insane amounts of math, trying to figure out what the perfect like pixel size is. And you realize it's a decimal, and guess what? You can't get a ruler on a decimal, and then you just feel bad. But this kind of fixes all of that. So yeah. And then we have plugins. Plugins are, I think, also one of the coolest features on Figma. So they kind of exist sort of at this here, and you can get so many plugins. So if you go browse plugins in community, there's like so many, like an insane amount. There's probably a plugin for like something kind of specific that you want to do, like maybe one of my favorite plugins is it's like an icon plugin. So if I just open it, it's called Iconify. And it's pretty much, you can kind of search for an icon. Okay, and you can pick like a theme, and you can kind of search for an icon you want, and it kind of does that. So for example, if I want an icon of a moon, it kind of gives me that. You can kind of say which pack you want it from if you want like more consistency, and you can pretty much insert it straight into your thing. And what this means is you don't have to spend like, I don't know, half an hour like scouring the internet looking for like the perfect SVG for your design. So that's like one of the plugins I like. Another one that I find quite useful is Lorem Ipsum as well, if you want to add text. That's just, you know, placeholder text. And there's also another one that I have used in the past, which is content reel. So this is for like if you want to kind of add images of people, for example, or like different things. They've added a lot more stuff since I last used it. But yeah, it's really useful for like just sort of random things that you can't be bothered to like find stock photos for or something, for example. So yeah, so I think like that kind of covers some of the basics. The one thing that I did forget to add was also that you can actually add, so one of the nice things is you can add styles for your project. So this is from when I did my capstone project. This was like our design guide, and these are the colors that we had in our color palette. And so it's a really nice, easy way to like reference it and make sure that everyone's using the same colors and everything looks the same without you having to like, I don't know, keep a note attached saying these are like the colors in my color palette. So yeah. So what we want to do is design an aesthetic, useful, and unique app. The screenshot you see on the right, well, I don't know if anyone thinks it's a real app. It's not. But I made it for my DECA 2500 project thing, and it's something that I made. Don't know. I thought I'm still like pretty proud of it. I think it looks nice until I added colors and then it looked gross. But anyway, so yeah, so we want to design something that kind of looks like this, but we want to design like a homepage because like I said before, I cannot design an entire app in like 30 minutes. So we'll try to design like the home screen, which is probably like one of the most important screens of an app, and we'll see how we go. So now we're going to do the pair designing part, which hopefully turns out well, but we'll see. So what is pair designing? It's like pair programming, but designer. Is this a real thing? Don't know. I made it up. So how does it work? So you'll tell me what to design. So you'll tell me what kind of app we're making, which I'll get to how you do that. Then you'll help me plan the design guidelines. So sort of who we're designing for. And I'll sort of walk through how I would go about doing it. And then I'll kind of, as we do that, you'll again tell me what you think of what I've done so far, and hopefully we'll be able to have, you know, done a home screen, or maybe two. I'm trying to be a bit ambitious here and say we can design 2 screens, but I've never even been able to build 1 screen in half an hour. So, you know, we'll see. All right, so tell me what to design. So this is where you can go. There's a QR code, a nice handy link. Yeah, as you tell me that, I will sort of try to fill the delay 30 seconds, whatever it is, with random rambling. So go to that QR code, which will take you to like a poll, hopefully. And then that you'll see something like this. And just put in what you think, and we'll see. Oh, so it's live. So someone's put, ooh, getting some exciting stuff. So I'll probably wait for about 30 seconds or a bit more. So habit tracking is something I've actually done before. That was my DECA 2500 project. I have never tried designing something for online shopping. I have tried designing something for productivity in my own time. Didn't end up really going anywhere because it's actually surprisingly hard to think of good designs for that, or like something like I was trying to think of something that wasn't done before, and that is surprisingly difficult. So we have 10 responses so far, which I think 30, 40, this is like very close. All right, so online shopping's winning. So I think we're just gonna go with that. But before we actually do online shopping, one of the things we need to know about whenever we do designing is who are we making it for, because that can pretty much change the entire way you design something. Like if it's for children, you probably want lots of colors, like big text. If you're designing for like the elderly, you probably again want big text. You want accessibility should be a key priority when it comes to that. There's things like that to consider. And so that's the next question. Who is our target audience? So based on this, so hopefully you can see, it's the same link, by the way, so no need to do that. Hopefully you can see the second question. This is the first time I'm using this website thing and I don't know how well it works. But so far we have teens / young adults. And we'll see. children, online shopping for children. This sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. So I'll just wait for a little while, because I think last one had like 11 responses or something, and maybe you can guess many. Oh my God, children, this is gonna be hard. You're making this way too hard for me, but okay, I can do it, probably. But yeah, so I think one of the things that often gets lost in design tends to be accessibility. It's pretty important. Like, I think we often forget. If you're someone who, doesn't need accessibility, it's very easy to forget why that's important. So for example, if you, sorry, I was just looking at the chat, and Matt wrote online shopping for those age 3 and under, and anyway, but yeah, accessibility is important. So this can be things like taking into account color blindness, taking into account larger, like needing larger text because maybe your eyesight isn't as good. Things like screen readers, I think those are probably like one of the hardest things to consider in accessibility. And I think like with screen readers, it's also the harder to do sort of design that for prototypes. You can try your best to sort of tell the people who will be working on the code to be like, this is sort of what we want people to be able to read. But yeah, okay, so now we have some responses. So children, this is going to be interesting. But as I said before, the one thing that we know about children is that they like colors. So what we're going to start off with is getting a very colorful palette, because something that I personally like to do before I start design is just look at lots of color palettes, and that gives me a lot of inspiration. So one of my favorite websites is colors.co, or coolers. And pretty much it's this really cool website. Oh my God, there's so many pop-ups. But it's this really cool website where you can kind of just hit space and it regenerates new palettes for you. It's something I use like whenever someone's like, let's get colors, and I will just be there tapping this for like 15 minutes until I can decide. Probably something like I said, is a lot of colors. So I'm just probably going to try to hit this a few times until I see something I like. So this seems kind of nice, I think. I'm just going to, you can also lock in colors on this website. This is like probably one of my top recommendations for a good website to use. The other thing to also consider is you want colors that kind of go together. So I think this will be nice, and yeah, I kind of like this. I think this looks nice. The other thing about this color palette website is also that it sort of only recommends colors that sort of do go well together, so you don't kind of have to worry too much about that. One thing that I might have to worry about though is things like contrast, because kids, like there might be kids who do have accessibility issues, which I will get onto in a bit. But this is our color palette. So what I'm going to do is very, very quickly. Oh God, no. Oh God, this is nope. Lost it. Okay. Disaster. Anyway, so the color palette, yes. So all we're gonna do is so we want to add colors. So we're gonna hit this little thing here, and we will add a color style. This is not, sorry. So we'll fill a color and then we'll add it as a color style. There are different ways to do this process, but we will just do it like this. So that's the color. I always click the wrong buttons. Let's just call this blue because it's blue. While I'm doing this, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I do have my phone like right in front of me, so I can sort of see the chat. And while this is maybe I should have, anyway. This is why I this is the wrong color. This is why I was worried about doing this live. What I am going to do now instead. So ideally you'd kind of add all of this, but because this is going to take a while and I keep pressing the wrong buttons, I am just going to leave it at these two colors and then I'll just work with the rest. But this should be black. Oh. But in the meantime, what we want is first a design. So this is online shopping for children. So what are the things that we would want to think of? So kids probably will click on things that are bright and colorful and I don't know, have like their favorite TV show character on it or something. We probably want kind of like bigger buttons for them, just because if you take, for example, they might just not be very good with like accuracy. So that's probably something you want to consider. We also might want to consider, for example, in the design, having something that prevents them from just buying stuff from their parents' credit card. So that's a consideration you might want to have in like the payment screen, is maybe having a part of something where it's a code that like gets sent to the parent's phone or something like that. I don't know. Those are some considerations to have. And we also probably want like kind of big font, just so that it's more appealing. And also the other thing we have to take into consideration is, because it's for kids, not all of those kids are probably that good at reading. So you probably want to use lots of icons and fun things to do that. Yeah, so there's some good comments. So big colorful buttons for Fortnite, V-Bucks, short attention span. Yeah, so they do in fact have a short attention span, so you probably want to grab their attention. So maybe we want I don't know, like an ad on like the homepage, and that'll sort of get their attention. Maybe like some music, loud music or something that sort of keeps them engaged. Now keep in mind that as I'm saying this, I am making a lot of assumptions about what children are like. Ideally, you probably want to do some research in your target audience, but for now we're just going to work on some very, very clear stereotypes and kind of build from that. Ideally, you don't do that, but anyway. So I'm going to delete these squares. So this is our home screen. The easiest way to sort of get something like this, if you want to maybe follow along, I don't know, hit that frame button and you can pretty much create a frame. There's like different options for what you want to do. It's like the easiest way. And this, which I forgot to mention earlier, but this status bar, I did not make it. I do not have that kind of patience. What I did get it from is this UI kit. So UI kits are, you'll be able to see them like a lot around. Like if you just search for Figma UI kit, there's like so many, like hundreds. You can kind of pick like your favorite ones. I personally stick to the iOS stuff because I use like Apple devices, so it's just easier for me to sort of envision it on a device that I use. There's like for Android, all of that. Like it comes with a lot of really cool things that you don't probably want to go designing yourself. For example, like the Apple keyboard. It's a waste of time if you try to design it yourself and someone's already done the work for you. One thing that I am missing from my design is I'm trying to figure out is the little, wait, I think it's just that. Is it? Yes. Okay. So I want the home indicator, and I'm just gonna paste it, and it got pasted over there, and we'll just move it, make sure it's centered. There's also like some really handy like things where you can actually position stuff. Move it down, then maybe move it up a bit, and voila! So now we have something that looks a little bit like a phone. So yeah, so now we want to actually design the thing. So one other thing to consider that actually we might not have to consider for children, but so whenever you're designing something, there's something called Jacob's Law, which says that people, when they come into a site or an app, kind of expect it to behave in the same way other sites and apps do. So what that means is you probably don't want to revolutionize like the entirety of how like an app or website works. You kind of want to stick to how people are used to seeing things. So for example, they might want to see like the tabs of the different places they could go to at the bottom. They might want a back button at the top of the screen. They would expect maybe like a search thing because that's kind of present in a lot of apps. So those sort of things to take into consideration. Like you can't revolutionize the entire UX. Even if you want to, you might probably want to do it in like steps and increments until they kind of get used to how things work, and then you add on something else. Because otherwise, it's just good. They're just going to get frustrated because they can't use the app. It doesn't work the way they expect it to. So what I will start off with probably is creating like, actually, I think I kind of have an idea for like creating like a massive sort of banner that kind of has like a video. So it's sort of like an ad. And then if they click on the ad, it just takes them to the product. As I'm saying this, like, just keep in mind, don't go like creating an app for online shopping for children. I'm pretty sure it's very illegal for commercial advertising reasons. So don't go around doing that. So I'll keep this as a placeholder for a video. With prototyping, one of the nice things is you don't have to really fill it with content. It's just like you can just say there's a placeholder here, and that's what it will do for now. We probably want like a search as well. And as I mentioned before, for children, we probably want it to be big because not all of them probably have a good accuracy. So you can create like a big square, and I'm just gonna remove the fill, but we'll add stroke. And so we might want to add some sort of rounded edges. Now this is getting into more like specifics of how I do things, but we want some rounded edges because it sort of looks nicer, and it's pretty common to see that in at least in like iOS devices, you get rounded edges with like search queries. So we'll just do that to maybe 15. So that sort of creates a nice rounded edge. So I'm just going to quickly go through the chat. Kids love Comic Sans. Maybe, but I refuse to use Comic Sans, so no. Surely get the text flashing bright green and neon purple. So that, like, Paul actually kind of, I assume he's saying it as a joke, but it's kind of an interesting point again about accessibility. So for example, flashing lights can be problematic for people who may have like epilepsy, for example. So that's something to take into consideration, right? Like if you have an audience and they're all going to have different, health issues and whatever and whatnot, and you kind of want it to be inclusive. It's something I'm personally very passionate about. So probably not going to do a lot of flashing lights, I think. And then something I like is interactive pointless features, like tapping a frog and it hops to the other side of the screen and croaks. Yeah, I mean, it's a children's app, so I think incorporating like little games or something could definitely keep them on the app for longer. So that's actually a really good idea. A virtual store. That's also a good idea. Yeah, so if it's with kids, maybe you can design something that makes them feel like they're buying stuff kind of like their parents might, but they're not actually spending any real money, and it's for some virtual persona. I actually really like that. So maybe I might actually steal Kenton's idea, and they said to, and I really like that. I think that would make this app a lot more fun too. So we have a little search thing. We'll have like a nice big video playing because I think that'll really keep people engaged. And then we obviously want some buttons at the bottom to just sort of help them navigate through the app. What I am going to do for this, because designing them nice and precise takes a really long time, I am going to steal one from a prototype I made before. And we'll just sort of switch around the icons. And I will paste that. And we'll just do that. And I will get rid of this actually. Nope. I just want to get rid of the icons. It's essentially a rectangle with like a line is all it is, but getting that like proportion right is something that would take way too long. And I guess it's like little things like that that I think put a lot of people off like designing. I personally find it really, really enjoyable because I don't know, it's something that I like doing. But when it comes to little things like that, again, a good thing is getting UI kits that have a lot of the components you want to use, and then you can just sort of mix and match things until it sort of looks decent enough. And then again, I just like rearrange some of the layers. So we want the home indicator to be at the top. So I just moved that up. And yeah, so now we're just going to add some icons, and we'll use the auto layout thing. I don't think it actually existed when I designed that, which is why the auto layout stuff did not work. So we probably want a home icon because that's going to be our home. So we'll use Iconify. And I don't want this icon pack, so just return there. So now this is a process of sort of trying to figure out what kind of style you want, whether you want things to be more like lines or you want it to sort of be like colored, so like blocked, kind of like this or like that. And that's where I think it comes a little bit down to personal preference, or like who you're designing for. Like if you're designing, say, a luxury product, you might want to try a more minimalistic styles, for example, maybe using an icon like this, just because it kind of looks a lot cleaner. For children, though, they probably want colors. They want, like, you don't want to like use a home icon that barely looks like a home like this one. They might not be able to really recognize it or sort of put two and two together. So I'm going to use this home with like the nice chimney because it looks a lot like a home. There's also like the door space and it's blocked, so we can probably add color to it later if we want to. So it's going to hit import, and it was imported. Just going to move it to there. And then so we can sort of add this here. And then I often like go to resize over here, but I always like the best way to do it is probably to hit this link thing so it constrains the proportions, and then sort of select the size. And with this, the only way you can kind of do this is like there's no sort of, I don't know, like big deal with this. It's just sort of you move around, like you play around with sizes until it kind of looks like good enough size. There isn't much more to it. So we have our nice home icon, and what else might we want? So we're creating a thing where they get to buy stuff for this virtual person that doesn't exist. So maybe we want, so the home can be where they can buy stuff. Maybe we want each icon to sort of, there to be icons for like different things. So maybe like clothes, accessories, tech products, and then like a me page where they can see what their character looks like and what things they have. So I think like that's a good place to start. You might want to do things differently, or as the app grows, you might add more features. But for what we're building really here, an MVP, which is a minimally viable product, we will stick to that. So if we go back to our icons, so we want a home, we want clothes. So I might search for clothes. And so again, we want something that is easily recognizable. So kind of something interesting is like, none of these really have the same style as this. So I might maybe search for like t-shirt, and now I get something that's more like blocked, and it kind of looks like that. So I think I quite like this t-shirt. And a t-shirt is a very, like, most kids wear a t-shirt, so it's something they can recognize very, very easily. So I said clothes, accessories. So an accessory could, for example, be a bag. So we can put a bag. So I think this looks a lot like a purse, and I think that's very recognizable. So put that. I guess like here is something where you might maybe want to think about, like sort of would maybe some of the like boys maybe associate that as like a feminine product, hopefully not, but maybe you want to use something else. So that's where I think designing can also get very interesting, is how does like a singular icon probably like change the entire way that your user interacts with the app. For now, I'll just use that because it's easy and I do not have the time to get into like really thinking about which icon to use. But we'll do that. And then we said clothes, accessories, tech. So I'll try to search for like a laptop. And there were a bunch. So a lot of these like might not like to me they look a lot like a laptop. I'm thinking, like, could a kid associate a rectangle and a line with that? What I might search for is if they have controllers, like game controllers, and I think, yeah, there we go. This is perfect. This is what I was looking for. And this is what I want. So kids like playing games. So, you know, this is something that they can easily associate with that. So now they can actually buy their whatever Fortnite bucks, virtual bucks that they want, and do that. So, okay, now once you've found like a good size, you probably want to keep the height about the same. Usually you want to keep both, but if you have like an icon that doesn't necessarily match the thing, you might want to play around with the height and the width. So the height was, I think, what's that? Yeah, so might put that there, but it looks like really large in comparison. So maybe instead, and I'll move this down so it's inside of this. Maybe, oh, it's not. Okay, wait. Something iffy has happened. Oh, I think, okay. Okay, this frame, this is why I don't, okay. You know what? I'm just gonna use the vector because I don't want the frame anyway. So move that, delete that. Okay. Now I'll move this, and then this can have a width of 50 because I think the height just makes it look quite large. And hopefully that's about the same. Again, like you can still play around with things, but if they're definitely like a squarish shape, just you can definitely use the same like height and width. And we will write the height for this one so that they're sort of the same height. And then with the shirt, just move that as well. There and there. So let's use a height of 50. And oop. That's the shirt. Oh no. Okay. Let's move this. So now we can probably do our fun auto layout if it'll let me. Which it might not, because I think I might have to move these out of frames. This is where Figma gets interesting. We'll try. Okay. Oh, okay. I think it's something about this bag that it doesn't quite like. So let's see. Oh, there we go. I think, okay, auto layout this bag. Okay. So we'll just do this and we can sort of play around with this maybe. I'm going to say like, although it's squished up the house because it's in a frame. Let me just do it within a frame. I think it'll work there. So this is where I, when I said live designing will be interesting. Let's add an auto layout. So we do definitely want it to sort of be arranged that way, and then you can just play around with the distances a bit, so maybe 50. So there's a nice amount of space between all of the icons for the kids to sort of move around with. And I'll rename this like icons or something. Try like using semi-useful names is probably a good idea, because otherwise it just gets I don't know. Okay, so with auto layout, this thing seems to be playing up, and I would try to figure out normally, but for now, this is acceptable. One other thing that I do want to do though is I think I'm going to move all of this a bit up. So just because when I took this from another design, it was not for like an iPhone with a home indicator. For an iPhone with a home indicator, you'll usually notice that the panels at the bottom tend to be a little bit larger than normal. So that's what we're going to do. So we have all of this, and I'm realizing that I'm missing the person icon so that they can look at their little person. So to make this easier, I think I'll just replace the gaming with the person. I'm sorry, guys. No games for the kids. What will they do? Probably a wiser idea would have probably been get rid of the accessories icon, but I want to put the person icon over there. So sometimes like this is not really what I want. So I'll try to search for contact, and that might give me a better. Let's just use this. It'll do. Like maybe like usually I'd probably spend a bit more time, but yeah, these are definitely things to consider when you're designing is how it all looks together. And I quite like the way this looks, to be honest. I think it does look fairly like consistent. And in reality, you'd probably want to use things from an icon pack. If you're really designing, if your app is based a lot on icons, you probably want someone to design icons for you so that they belong to your app. But for a prototype, it works pretty well, especially if you're designing something for like a hackathon or something where you just want to be like, we just want icons. They kind of need to look like this. So far we have like somewhat of something going on. So what we want to do now is probably design more of this homepage, right? So we probably want space for the name of our app. If you have any ideas for the name of the app, maybe just put it in the chat, and I can steal an idea again. What I'm also going to do is, so I want to make this screen longer so that people can scroll. What I realized as I was doing this is that I haven't locked some of the components to the bottom. So what I would want to do is can like fix this. So you can fix position when scrolling. And I also want to fix the position for the home indicator as well, but I'll move this up so that it shows up on top. And now what this means is when I do that, it fixes to the bottom, and that's what you want. So when you go to do the prototype, and they moved the buttons. So when I go to look at the prototype, it sort of sticks to the bottom, and you can actually scroll. So you can kind of see how this fits in quite nicely in this app. It's also a good way to sort of see whether like your margins and stuff are looking good. I think they look fine so far, so I'm happy with that. So we probably want maybe something that you might see on normal online shopping apps is like other sort of sales or something like that. With kids, they might not fully have a good understanding of why you should save money. So maybe sales might not be as exciting for them because they might not fully understand why you should care if something's 50% off. So maybe instead we might do like put like tiles with maybe a popular TV show, so there can be a segment for like TV shows, games, and so on. So that as they scroll, they get like these different sections. So to do that, so this is like our nice little video. This is our search bar. What we also probably want above the search bar is like the icon for the app, so that it's pretty obvious what app it is. So in the chat, we have the options V-Bucks, Bazaar, eBaby. I think eBaby is quite funny. I also really like V-Bucks Bazaar. Maybe I'll call it Baby Bazaar. How about that? I quite like that. So ideally, I would also probably spend more time designing a nice little logo. For now, I'll just put some text that says Baby Bazaar. And center it. I think I will probably just make it look somewhat decent. Maybe change it to a font that's sort of playful, which my one annoyance with Figma is that none of the fonts show up like what the fonts look like, which is normally a thing in a lot of other like platforms. So I often forget what the name of the font is, or like especially if they're like a font that I don't use often. So what is this font? No, that's not what I want. Okay, this will do. This looks kind of fun and kiddish enough. I'll also reduce the line spacing, which is actually so it's too small. So it's size 30. So I think yeah. Center that. Okay. So that kind of looks decent. Yeah, so now we have this. With the search bar, we also probably want to make it obvious that's a search bar. So we probably want to add a little search icon as well. Search, and there are so many fun icons. I'll pick this nice big one. Then I'll just move it here and put it here. Again, I'll probably want a nice big size. So I think 50 is too big. 40. That looks too big. There's not clean margins. So I guess like sometimes a design looking nice and looking haphazard is like padding and margins. And those are things I think that if you're not very good at noticing them, I think something that's useful doing is probably like going through sites like Dribble and stuff, where people upload like their designs and seeing what good design looks like. And the other thing is probably to maybe like just whenever you go to a website, try to sort of look at it from the perspective of a designer. And that seems kind of hard, but the idea is play around with the website and see like how does it react to, for example, if you make the window smaller or if you make it bigger, and what do like their padding and stuff look like. And if you ever find yourself being like, this is really, really annoying, chances are it's probably bad UX. There's an interesting line of like, are you just bad at using something, or is the design bad? And there's like a book about it, which I forget what it's called, but chances are that it's probably designed bad if you're struggling way too hard at it, because sites should be easy to use, apps should be easy to use, they should not be a pain to use. So we have this so far, and we're just gonna add some tiles, and I'm realizing there's only 5 minutes left. So I'm gonna try to finish off this homepage the best I can. As I mentioned, it is quite hard to design like an entire sort of app, but we'll add some rectangles. So for the tiles, and I want to leave some space for the headings. And what I probably actually want to do over here is make this a component, because these are tiles that are going to be replicated. They're all going to look about the same. So I am just going to create it here. So what I do want is I want it to sort of maybe have a border, but maybe I want it to be like a thin border so that it sort of looks like it's there. And then I want to add some text. Okay. So I guess for this, I kind of like this font, so maybe you can just use the font from the logo for all of it. And it's like a good size. Now, something that you might realize is that this app is very black and white. No child is going to enjoy this. So this is where I think I'll just add a bit of color. But before I do that, let's just make this into a component so that we can just copy paste it across. So there is a shortcut, which I don't seem to remember it. I got it wrong. I forgot the option. So it's Command Option K. So that creates a component, and let's just call it tiles or something. And then we'll just duplicate that across. And then that way I can just go ahead and change what this says. So maybe games TV shows or something. And notice again, this big font, the tiles are also a decent amount of size. So if you were to look at the proportions, they take up about more than a quarter of the screen, about a third. So it's kind of what you want for kids, again, because you want their attention to be on that one thing. And you want everything to be colorful. And so let's just add a bit of color before I think we kind of go into the overall thing, because I am running out of time. So maybe we'll make Baby Bazaar have a lot of color, and we'll just use one of the colors in the color palette earlier, which I don't know where it's saved. Nope. Okay. Let's just use this pink because it's very bright, it's very colorful. And there you go. All right, we got a nice bright pink. It's already starting to look a bit like there's more life in this. We can probably add just like background color to the app, because that might make it look a bit more nicer. We might want to add is maybe say this blue. It's a light blue. It seems to look good. So do that. And now this is like something that I did want to show, is the contrast on this is probably not great. And there is a very fun plugin that I used. And so there's this plugin called Contrast, and it's failed everything because obviously this is very hard to read. So what I might do maybe instead is, if I still want a blue, I want a nice blue, but maybe I will make it a lighter blue. So I might sort of move it a bit up there. So it's still got that blue tint, but maybe now it's a bit more readable. So if I hit that text, plugins, contrast, so it's still failing. So I probably want to make it a bit lighter again. Probably maybe use a different color. I think blue and pink is probably not the wisest choice anyway. But this has some light color, has a bit of fun. Maybe it's a bit too, I would say, basic. It's still failing the contrast thing. So I think blue and pink is just not a good idea. But for now, let's just roll with it because I'm really running out of time. What we would then also maybe want to do is add color to these titles. So we can make it a nice yellow. So do that. This is really bad. So you can barely read it, which is not good. If someone's struggling to read something that you wrote, the chances are you should probably change it. But there's now some color in this. Maybe you want to add some color to the icons. What I would normally do with this as well is then add some flows, build the other screen. So what we want the clothing thing to look like. The clothing and accessory probably look quite similar, just have different items. So maybe you can just design a screen that's a component and just sort of replicate it, change some details, that sort of a thing. And now if we go to sort of look at it, prototype, we can like scroll up. It kind of looks a bit more eye-catching already. I think there's so much more going on. What I would do to make sure that you can see the bottom of TV shows, I'd probably bring that down a bit so that now you can scroll all the way to the bottom. So I think I'm going to end the designing stuff there, just because there isn't really much more time left and I kind of want to get to the end of it. So so tell me what you think about what we've done so far. I was hoping to use this about I was hoping to be a lot faster, but we're thinking we're going to skip this and just maybe instead give me your final thoughts. So this is a different link because the website that I use, you can only do 2 questions per presentation thing. And it was like, anyway, bad website. If anyone else has better polling websites, maybe leave them in the comments. And yeah, Matt is right. The book that I was talking about is Design of Everyday Things, which talks about how whether the design itself is bad or whether people are bad at using something. So this was the question. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but I think you should be now. So if you maybe want to go and add any comments about the design or the talk, whatever you want, or even you can just put in the chat at this point. But thank you for coming. I hope you learned something today, even through the mess and sporadicness of what it was. Hopefully took something away. I will be hanging out for a bit on the Discord. I'm at Sanni on Discord, like the easiest Discord, if you do want to ask me more questions. If I do have time, I'll try to maybe finish it up and put some version of the final app on Discord, but that's if I have time, if I feel up to it. But hopefully you kind of also realize that Figma is amazing and it's a tool that you probably do want to learn how to use in some capacity. It's really useful, whether it's to do Deco 2500 or to just, I don't know, have fun with, or to use for hackathon to just quickly whip up a design. And if you don't even want to use Figma, I would highly, highly recommend at least just taking a piece of paper, just drawing some screens just to at least see what you want something to look like. And I think it makes a big bucket load of difference, especially if you can just go up to people and be like, do you think this makes sense? Or would you expect this to be here? Would you expect clicking this to go there? Stuff like that. Made this presentation in Canva if anyone wanted to, I don't know, duplicate it, and Hotel Trivago. So thank you so much for watching. Have I got tea about Adobe XD? I actually don't, because I've never used it. I've used like a prototype from Adobe XD, and I didn't have like the bestest of times with it, but I actually haven't used it to design a prototype. The reason I came across Figma was because I actually wanted to use Sketch, which is a paid app, but I couldn't afford it. It was like, it's like $70 a year or something. And that's just way too expensive for like when I use it not that often. So I was going across the internet trying to find something that was free. I'm not too sure if Adobe XD has any free stuff, but anyway, I came across Figma and I just fell in love with it, and I haven't used anything else since. But yeah, thanks for coming. I will be sticking around in Discord. If you do want to come to UKCS Hackathon, early bird sales are ending tomorrow, so make sure to grab a ticket for $5 less, and you can also get a fun hackathon t-shirt for $5 as well. So make sure to do that, and hopefully I can see you all next week if COVID things allow. Yeah, that's me.